F1's greatest underdog of 2023 has been a real giant killer at times, beating Ferraris, McLarens, Aston Martins and Alpines on its best days. The reward is a championship position that defies the low expectations this team had way back at pre-season testing, where being the slowest team looked a certainty for the start of the year. And to top it off, this year isn't even the priority. All eyes are on 2024 and beyond. That sounds quite rosy for Williams, right? But there's an obvious problem. It has been a one-driver team, and that must be fixed as it plans to make bigger steps in the coming season. Williams has been completely reliant on Alex Albon this year, as rookie Logan Sargent continues on a trend of flashes of potential but frustrating near misses. And Williams cannot depend on Albon's heroics forever, which means it has a big decision to make. Last year, Nicholas Latifi being nowhere near Albon didn't matter because Williams was a distant last. This year, Williams is lucky that a one-sided driver lineup might not stop it winning a valuable championship fight. There was a time when finishing 7th in the points was something that the great Williams team couldn't possibly be content with. And actually, team boss James Vowles, who took charge at the start of this year, often points out he doesn't really want his team to be happy with this. But in the context of the low expectations Williams began 2023 with, this is a real victory over bigger and theoretically more together teams. Given Williams came into this year having axed its team boss, technical director and head of aerodynamics last December, it didn't exactly scream functioning F1 team with ace tech people. And Albon was adamant after testing that Williams' own analysis had it dead last of the 10 teams going into Bahrain, and the hope was it would just be a better 10th than last year. After surprising himself by scoring a point in the season opener, Albon spent most of the first half of the season insisting that Williams was the slowest car and was just executing well in an ultra-tight midfield while other teams tended to trip up. That might sound a little convenient and self-promoting, but it stacks up. If we look up to the summer break, Williams had the slowest car outright in 4 of the 10 dry events. Only in Britain did it have a car so fast it should have qualified in the top 10, although some overachieving in Australia and in the wet in Canada allowed Albon to make Q3 a couple more times. If you want to see the spark for this turnaround, it's easy. Williams introduced a major car upgrade in Canada. Among the many changes were a new floor body, revised side pod inlet, side pod geometry and engine cover, and new external geometry on the rear suspension. That lifted the car's overall performance ceiling without dramatically challenging its handling characteristics, which meant a usable, quite well balanced car just became all round a bit quicker. That bodes well for the new Williams way of working, as even if it did inherit a decent baseline from the old regime, this was a display of effective development that Williams has previously missed. And at the same time, various rivals failed to make the same progress. Immediate competitors had their own issues, such as Haas being distracted by trying to solve its chronic problems following other cars and using the rear tyres too aggressively, and Alfa Romeo's development just seeming to stall in its effectiveness. But bigger teams also became vulnerable. Ferrari's dramatic fluctuations in performance track to track, Aston Martin's drop-off, and Alpine's general Alpineness meant that Williams could not just beat its closest rivals on merit, it could pick off the bigger guns as well. Two things make what Williams is achieving particularly impressive. The first is that this season really isn't the priority under Vowles. He's planning for the long term, has said consistently since Bahrain that he will sacrifice development in 2023 to get ahead on 2024, and the car will not have upgrades like its rivals will over the rest of this season. The second factor is what we highlighted earlier, that Albon is driving the Williams challenge single-handedly because rookie teammate Sargent is the only full-time driver in 2023 yet to score a point. Since that 10th place in Bahrain, Albon and Williams have gradually pieced together more and more points challenging races. He crashed out in Melbourne while running comfortably in the points, which was a big blow, but costly as that one blunder was, it pales in comparison to the impressive body of work that makes up the rest of Albon's season. A vintage Albon display for 7th in Canada and a Ferrari beating drive to 8th in Britain are the point scoring headlines, but near misses in Austria and Hungary were also excellent efforts. If 2022 was an excellent repair job following his rollercoaster first 2 years in F1 with Red Bull before being shoved onto the sidelines, this year has been a real establishment of Albon as a serious force in F1. He looks and drives like he's stepped things up a notch and reckons this is the best he's driving in F1. Given Albon's outscoring 3 entire F1 teams on his own, who are we to disagree? It was Albon's result at Silverstone that put Williams above Haas, Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri in the championship, and he has only strengthened that position since. When F1 returned from the summer break at Zandvoort, Albon had apparently told good friend and Mercedes driver George Russell on their journey to the Netherlands that Williams would be rubbish on the high downforce circuit. But a variety of factors, including some more Albon magic, led to a stunning 4th in qualifying, easily the best result of the season, and more points in a chaotic race that would have probably ended in a better finish than 8th in normal conditions. Albon and Williams then earned back-to-back points finishes for the first time together with a more conventional weekend at Monza, where Williams' strength at low downforce meant Albon qualified 6th and finished 7th with a strong rearguard action against the two McLarens. That's moved Williams clear in the fight for 7th, and its rivals have mixed feelings about whether it can be caught. Nico Hülkenberg reckons Haas is done for unless it finds a magic solution that transforms its race day performance, although at Alfa Romeo, Valtteri Bottas is a little more optimistic that its own upgrades could put it into position to challenge for points at a few more races before the end of the year. Given Williams has no such development plans, it is relying entirely on what it already has. Closing out this championship position is its sole remaining 2023 priority, but it would surely be more confident in doing that if it didn't look like an Albon solo effort. Sargent was fast-tracked into F1 by Williams to fill a driver gap, came in with limited mileage and preparation, and had a tough task to adjust as a result. He has had his moments this season, the problem is that they've been fleeting, and not come in any particularly meaningful way. The last 2 races after the summer break have summed that up perfectly. Though he has shown sparks of promise, and done so while the car has been stronger, like getting into Q3 for the first time at Zandvoort, he also does things like then crashing out in Q3. Sargent also had a way too cautious opening lap that dropped him out of points contention in the Netherlands, even before a hydraulics issue caused him to crash out of the Grand Prix. In Italy, he looked a good 3/10 off Albon at his best, failed to get out of Q2, and couldn't pull off the one stop like Albon did in the race, although this was complicated by not having the newest spec front wing after his crashes at Zandvoort. That was a mitigating circumstance, but the underlying point is that these 2 races are when Williams expected to start seeing a better rate of progress, and it hasn't materialised yet. And while Sargent missed out on another points opportunity, maybe one of Williams' last of the season, another rookie gave a very good account of himself at Monza. On his first full weekend as Daniel Ricciardo's AlphaTauri stand-in, Liam Lawson pretty much matched regular driver Yuki Tsunoda in qualifying and was classified 11th in the race after gaining 1 place due to a penalty for Oscar Piastri. In doing so, there's an argument that Lawson managed in one weekend what Sargent hasn't really done all season. He's got close to his established teammate and close to the maximum of the car. It undercuts the argument that Sargent's a rookie and needs to be given time. Nobody's expecting him to pump in a Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen first year in F1, but a good rookie, not necessarily even a great one, could do more than he's done so far. Lawson is advancing his case for a race seat full time and will keep driving in Ricciardo's absence, likely in Singapore and Japan as well. But what next? Is the door closed at AlphaTauri with Ricciardo and Tsunoda the likely pairing? Could Tsunoda be dumped or actively choose to go elsewhere? If Red Bull has no immediate space for Lawson, then Williams could be a very convenient stopgap, sending him there on loan. It would be unorthodox, but not completely without precedent. Remember, Red Bull put Ricciardo at HRT for his Grand Prix debut. And for Williams, you would have to think that Lawson looks like he could well be an upgrade on Sargent. So there's a conversation to be had there, especially if Lawson keeps performing like he did at Monza, then it will be difficult to justify not getting him into F1 properly. It illustrates the advantage of getting into a race seat and making a more compelling case for yourself. The awkward thing for Sargent is he's had that race seat and held his fate in his own hands all season and not done enough with it. An alternative is that Williams goes for one of the less heralded semi-experienced drivers on the market. Is Tsunoda a possibility given his Red Bull days are numbered? He seems to be the main contender for a Honda-backed drive at Aston Martin in 2026, so getting him out of the Red Bull stable makes some sense and would seem realistic. The other option is Zhou Guanyu. He's had a good second season alongside Valtteri Bottas at Alfa Romeo, although hasn't exactly eclipsed his more experienced teammate. He is a popular, hard-working and intelligent part of that team, but could be shoved aside to make room for either Sauber's own protege and F2 title favourite Théo Pourchaire, or Aston Martin reserve and 2022 F2 champion Felipe Drugovich. As it stands, Joe would be a step up from Sargent. He might lack the absolute peak potential, but he's certainly closer to his and the car's maximum on a regular basis and would be more dependable as a point scorer. These are hardly the most exciting range of options for Williams, but there are some legitimate and interesting contenders. And Williams doesn't really need to unearth the next Verstappen. Right now, it just needs someone who can offer even half of what Albon does.